Yeah.
You're listening to the PHNX Wildcats show.
Let's go.
Coming to you live from Allegiant Stadium, presented by Circa Resort and Casinos. Big thanks to the great Saul Bookman using some of those contacts to make things happen. Saul Bookman, you're the man. We appreciate you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, all right. Well, either way, I like the Circa.
You
deal.
actually made a big deal today.
Well, yes, but I was talking about you with the Circa, Saul Bookman.
Oh,
So. All right. Anyways, modesty is still a virtue in today's society. But, Saul, we got a lot to get to this show. We are going to talk. We're going to hear exclusively from Brett Yormark.
You're damn right.
We're going to hear from Dennis Dodd. We're going to hear from Yogi Roth. We're going to hear from Sonny Dykes.
Was the only media outlet to get the commissioner on their show today.
That would be the PHNX Wildcats.
That's right, buddy.
Boom, boom,
You
boom,
made
boom.
the big deal right
Very exciting. Yes, I will say that I will say when I woke up this morning, I was very nervous because I've had this in the works for quite a while, and I'm always worried that something's going to fall through, and it didn't. We seized the moment, and
you did.
But before we get into all of that, Saul, Brett Yormark spoke today. When I say that there is just something, when you watch that man, you're like, all right, he gets it. And I think that's exactly what you said. When you said that to me, what was just going through your mind?
You know, I just think that his perspective on where we are as a conference, where the future of college sports is going, I think he just understands that, you know, this is an ever-evolving process. And if you are going to be stagnant in your ways, you will be left out high and dry.
Yes.
And that was the biggest takeaway I had from him, is that he's never going to stop trying to figure out innovative ways for the conference to move forward as a whole. And he's starting to make a name for himself nationally, and he's moved this conference ahead of where it was just a few short years ago. And he's completely obliterated one other conference because they were set in their ways and they didn't understand the future, and they paid a huge price for it. Now they only have two teams in there. And so that's the things that when he was – listen, man, this guy was speaking my love language, because I'm all about, like, how do you always look at different ways to improve? What are the processes and what's changing out there in the space to help you improve? And I think that's what he's doing.
And I think we got to briefly just remind folks of how we got here at this time. Because keep in mind, when he took over, you had national media folk, or before he took over, saying that when Oklahoma and Texas announced they were leaving, the Big 12 is done. It's done. It might come back as kind of like a Southern Mountain West version, but, you know, as a major entity, it's done. When he took over, I'm a big believer in, you know, following through. If somebody says something, just do it. And he said, listen, we will get a raise for every single school in here. We will be on linear television along with streaming, and we will expand with desirable schools coming in. You're not going for like ULL Monroe or something like that. And Saul, we're sitting here. He knocked the ball out of the park on all three of those.
Yeah, he did. What he's done, like I said, is nothing short of remarkable. The crazy thing about this is obviously I don't think he's done it all.
No.
Like, I think this is just the beginning. The way he approached everything, the reason why he wanted to expand, and the amount of teams that they expanded to, and then just an eye on the future. Listen, both conferences, the Pac-12 and the Big 12, had opportunities to keep or attain Texas and Oklahoma at one point or another.
Right.
One of them, as soon as they didn't get them, and really they turned them down in the Pac-12, just kind of sat there and didn't really do anything moving forward.
Right.
The other one immediately pivoted and made changes to shore up their product, to shore up their conference, and align themselves more with the future of college sports. And you could argue that they've rebounded so nicely.
Yeah.
The conference is strong.
Right.
And losing Texas and Oklahoma isn't that big of a deal anymore.
It's really not that big of a deal because of also who you replaced him with as well. We'll get into that in a little bit. But you look at this conference, and again, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to keep bringing this up. You see energetic fan bases, and when we hear from Brett in a minute, Brett, but when we hear from Commissioner Yormark in a minute, he's going to talk about that, though, that these are just engaged. This feels so much different than it did last year. And we're going to talk, obviously, a ton of basketball, but we're going to talk football as well here. There's a lot of really good football teams in this conference. This is not, I think there's this misconception that, that's the third conference. There's 5 teams in the preseason top 25. Dennis Dodd mentioned that as well. You're a power football conference if you have 5 teams in the preseason top 25, period.
They might not be like as big as the SEC and the Big Ten.
Right.
But they're equally as competitive, I think.
Right.
Maybe not the top tier. Like
right.
the best in the Big 12 might still not be able to beat the best in the Big 10 or the SEC. I will admit that. But I think from like 1 to like 10,
right.
Hell, you could even make an argument 1 through 16,
yeah.
where every single week you better bring it,
yeah.
or you're going to lose.
Right.
And in the pack, it felt like you could take some off weeks and still win.
Right.
It just doesn't feel like that. And listen, that's a good thing. That's a good thing for our brand, and for the U of A to be able to be associated with a conference like that. You got to come with it every single week.
And when you watch a guy like Brett Yormark, and we're going to hear from him in just a second, I think it's also just that there is nothing, and I thought you hit the nail on the head, there is nothing reactionary about what he does. Everything is proactive. And when you're in this day and age where you've got kind of this major type, you got this like major type conference and whatnot, and you're looking and you're like, all right, what's the next step that this needs to take? I say we talk about good catch, Saul. I'd say we talk about the kind of the cultural fit and everything, and what Brett Yormark saw in the U of A. Saul, what say you?
Well, the cultural fit. They wanted to expand west.
Mm-hmm.
That was another big one.
Yep.
He talked about expanding west when he was proposed with a question about, do you want to take up more space in the west? He said that's always in the thought.
Yeah.
And being here in Vegas was part of that. Part of that scenario. He just illuminated so many things that I thought were fantastic. He talked about infusing the old with the new,
mm-hmm.
and he talked about how at the Big 12 championship game that they used Nelly to do a performance in conjunction with a band that they had. So you're bringing in a little bit of the nostalgia, and you're bringing in some of the new. Just all those things. The elevation of their social media product. 250,000 more followers over the course of the last year. Just a lot of different things going on. The mature startup angle from what they're doing. So I again, venturing out west, bringing on ASU, U of A, the four corner schools, Colorado and Utah, is only the tip of the iceberg.
Yes. All right. Now, why don't we hear from Brett Yormark? We got an exclusive interview with him. Why don't we hear what Brett Yormark has to say? Great, Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner. Brett, Arizona fans have had you on their mind for a long time, and this conference going in here, especially with the fanfare when it comes to basketball, the way that the fan bases are engaged, feels like a natural fit. Can you talk a little bit about Arizona and what you just kind of saw and what made them
Well, listen, we're excited to have Arizona. I mean, they were on the top of the list, when we were thinking about realignment last summer. Became pretty friendly with Bobby Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
It was important for me to understand the culture that existed in Arizona, but obviously it's a perfect fit. Bobby knows, and so does the school. They're very familiar with our conference. There's been a lot of collaborations amongst the schools, basketball wise. I mean, they made us so much stronger. Football, you guys are coming off a great season, great win in the Alamo Bowl. In fact, I was there.
Right.
And you make us stronger in Olympic sports. So, I mean, the package has been fantastic. I've been spending quite a bit of time in Arizona. Look forward to being there in the fall for sure for some college football weekends.
Definitely not right now.
No, not there, not right now.
Too hot.
I mean, Dallas is hot and humid. This place is hot. But we're excited about the Four Corners, generally speaking. And we're excited about where this conference is going as a 16-team league for the first time.
Well, you're speaking my love language up there, talking about the analytics between social media and the growth of the conference and seeing things in a different way. You talked about the type of investment that you want to make in student athletes across the board and the innovative ways that you can do that. Can you point to maybe a few unique wrinkles that you have talked to schools about to try to provide student athletes outside of just like obviously the NIL stuff?
Well, listen, I think we need to be a support system for student athletes. I mentioned earlier we established a health and well-being advisory group this
Right.
year, which was made up of student athletes and subject matter experts on campus. We're doubling down on storytelling. I think that's critically important as student athletes build their brands. They need someone to help distribute that story.
Right.
And there are so many human interest stories on every campus in our conference that need to be told, and we want to be advocates of that at the conference level. We're also going to be working with ESPN and Fox to still tell more stories about our student athletes and give them the platform that they deserve. And one of the reasons, candidly, that I went early with ESPN and Fox was I felt it was critically important not only to stabilize the conference, but to give our student athletes the biggest stage possible so they could become the best version of themselves. So it's a combination of a lot of things. There's not a crystal ball there, but we're doubling down in all the right areas, and we think it's the right thing to do because at the end of the day, at the core of why we're here, it's the student athlete.
And then lastly, when it comes to basketball, you said that there's another level that you think you can reach by having the best basketball conference in the country, with so many brand names. What is that next step then, because everybody talks about football, but basketball does seem to be a little bit underrated in the grand scheme of
Listen,
things.
basketball is growing.
Yeah.
It's a global sport. You see what's happening with the NBA and their media rights
Right.
deal. I want to position ourselves in the best way possible for that next TV cycle.
Right.
And everything we do now sets us up for that moment. I've said before, I do look at the conference very holistically. I think we're getting better at football, and we're continuing to invest there. I think we're the number one basketball conference in America, and we just got stronger, both men's and women's.
Right.
And when you think about Olympic sports, we got stronger. And I think all of that in combination will put us in a enviable position when we go back into the market in 30. And given what we did in our new TV deal, which starts next year, we have optionality on the back end.
Right.
We can go back and renew as a package, or we can bifurcate football and basketball and see what the value of basketball is specifically. So I'm excited for that.
Right.
And we've got great brands and we have up and coming brands too. So I expect us to be very strong in all sports when we go back into the marketplace.
You provided yourself flexibility there. You're here in Vegas. Obviously, you agreed to keep the basketball tournament in Kansas City. Is Vegas going to be a part of the program in some way, shape, or form, whether it be football, basketball, or any other sports moving
I'd
forward?
like it to become. I mean, yesterday I met with the chair of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. I reinforced and reaffirmed our commitment to the marketplace.
Right.
I think we need to be here for all the right reasons. And even before realignment occurred, I'd always said that we needed to be in Vegas. It's the entertainment and sports capital of the world. And when you think about our conference and how we're weaving in entertainment and music to tell our story, it's critical that we're here. And to the extent that there's opportunities for us, we're going to pursue them.
He is Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, one of the most popular people in Tucson, Arizona. Brett, I kid you not, if I speak for Tucson, we're excited to be part of the conference.
Absolutely.
We're excited to be under your leadership,
I'm
my
thrilled
man.
to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
That is the great Brett Yormark. Also, we need to talk about the great Circle K. Here is the deal with Circle K, Saul. I went to a Circle K in Goodyear, Arizona at your advice. Guess what? I will be going back there as well. That Circle K had everything. 16 gas pumps, my friend, and cheap gas, all kinds of good food, some cold beverages, and I was very impressed, Saul. You know your way around the Circle K Phoenix area.
Pebble Creek Parkway off of the I-10. You can't miss it. It's right there on the corner. Fantastic. It's a brand new one. Check it out. But you can check out any Circle K because they're all fantastic. Some of them are a little bit older than others, but they still have all the goods that you need. So check it out.
Check it out. Circle K is also part of the Inner Circle. Now, we talk about the Inner Circle all the time. A big part of the Inner Circle, though, is you got to be free. It's free. You can download the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. You are part of the Inner Circle.
Of course.
Your lovely wife, part of the Inner Circle.
Course.
Okay, all right.
Kids, all part of the
I
Inner
was going to
Circle.
say they are part. Listen, if it's The Bookmans do it. You do it. Check it out. Inner Circle. Again, one of these ones you will thank me later on. Another thing, too. The Desert Financial Credit Union. Let's get right down to it. The Desert Financial Credit Union, who does not want $200?
I don't know.
Do you want $200, Saul?
Show me that person, because if they don't want $200, they can go to the bank, get $200, and just give it to me if they just want to throw it away.
And what's also great about it, too, is that you're supporting something that gives that community likes. Desert Financial has been around it's very reputable. Many people have used it. And like I said, get $200 from there as well. Here's the deal, though. It's very simple. When you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. Quick story. Eric Ruby, the great Eric Ruby, was telling me that he wished he had a little bit more gambling money, but I told him, I said, you know what? Should have gone to Desert Financial Credit Union.
No. We're not telling people to go to Desert Financial Credit Union
for the $200
to support their gambling habits.
No, that's all right, fair enough. But he wanted money. But again, that's what you got to do, though.
See, the thing is, I've been a part of Desert Financial Credit Union, so I can't open up a free checking account because I've had it. It's been in my family for literal generations, since my grandparents.
Well, that's when you change your name to Rick Irubi.
Yes. I'm just going to change to one of the nicknames they give me on the ASU show.
There you go.
I am surrounded by greatness, though, because everybody understands the greatness of Desert Financial Credit Union. Again, check it out, desertfinancial.com/200. All right. Now, with Brett Yormark, that interview came down to one thing for me, Saul, and I keep going back to what he said. This is all about positioning ourselves for the next TV deal. In the grand scheme of college athletics, we're going to let you in on a little bit of a secret here. There's going to be another massive blow up here. Now, maybe that means the conferences stay together and just solidify, whatever the case may be. But Brett Yormark clearly wants this conference position so that in 2029, 2030, they have the strongest possible, whether that means bringing in more schools, revenue shares, whatever the case may be. All of this is done with an eye towards the future. Another thing that is actually very reassuring.
Yeah, everything has been positioned to give them the flexibility to take advantage of scenarios that might pop up unexpectedly.
Right.
And that's the best way to be able to operate a company, because if you just are so rigid in your ways and you deal in absolutes, you will fail.
Yes.
Look at what is happening in the media market. For the longest time, the newspaper industry, the radio industry, and the television industry were so dominant that the executives within those spaces just ignored the internet. They just ignored digital and the digital spaces. And by the time they came to and realized, oh man, we are losing a lot of money and a lot of opportunity, it was too late. It was too late. It's like, listen, when technology is introduced, instead of avoiding it and ignoring it, you should embrace it and try to learn as much about it as possible, because you don't want to be on the outside looking in when it's too late. When you're fucking 60 trying to figure out how to use Twitter, you're screwed. You're totally screwed. You need to get it in with the program when it starts. And that's what Brett Yormark has done with this conference and how he's trying to position everything. They get ahead of the game while it is introduced, not when you need it.
I thought it was very fascinating, too, that he mentioned, and he went out of his way to mention multiple times, that he says we have the second most Twitter followers out of any conference in the country. That might seem like a very simple thing, or social media followers. But for somebody like that I think is very savvy about what that next move is, I think he knows that he has to have a very, very strong social media presence. Give you an idea about where we came from with the social media presence. When everything was happening, when both the LA schools booked it to the Big Ten, obviously a bad day for the conference, I got on the Pac-12 network, or Pac-12 Twitter, and there was literally nothing on there. It was an update about the, I think it was the aquatics or something. I mean, there was no crisis management, anything like that. This man clearly gets it. The other thing, too, is I love his focus on basketball. I've always felt this, and to me, this is such a red herring. Smoked herring. I turned it into have you ever had a smoked herring for dinner?
Not.
All right, yes. But to me, when people are like, oh, you just have to focus on football, I think that's all nonsense. I believe that's correct. Listen, football is the big money maker. I get it.
It is.
But basketball, I think, is incredibly undervalued in all of this, and I think Yormark gets it. His first point is he says, listen, man, this is a global game. This is on us to be able to capitalize on this, and I've got the best product going.
Well, I agree with you, Mike, but I would also say this. In the Big 12 itself, outside of the TV deals, okay, when you're talking about growing the game, the game that can grow the most is basketball.
Yeah.
It's not football, because as he pointed out, 6 of the 12 schools last year, so 50% of the conference was at 100% capacity football wise. That's ridiculously good.
Right.
Okay, 6 schools had sellouts all year long, and then another 3 or 4 were at 80%. So, like, we come to a conference that doesn't have a lot of room for growth in terms of the football side of things. It's all about basketball.
Right.
Basketball, you're going to be able to develop and grow this game because there's a lot of opportunity to really take advantage of it. So, again, I just think that his eye to the future in multiple different ways is really appealing, and it's what's going to ultimately lift this conference above all others.
I was also very impressed by what he said about when he was courting Arizona, and I know this from a fact from some people that told me about it, that he spent a lot of time figuring out the cultural and, what makes Arizona tick. And I don't mean cultural like, what your religion is or something like that. Just what is Tucson?
Yeah.
What is, because this is an East Coast guy. This is an East Coast guy. And he said, I have a big part of it was me being able to find out. And then he's like, the more I found out about it, they fit in perfectly with what we wanted to do. He talked about, basketball. That's obviously a really big thing here. He talked about how it's a college town. And he had an interview a while back with somebody else, and I can't remember who it is, so I apologize. But he said, people try to talk about, schools that are college towns as if it's a bad thing.
No.
He says, if you say something's a college town, guess what I'm probably going to know? There's a lot of fan support there. So you almost kind of take that and you kind of turn it on its back at that point.
Yeah, the college town thing never bothered me. I think more than anything, there's a passionate community there, and they want to support something.
Right.
And honestly, like, I know a lot of the Phoenix and ASU peeps try to crap on Tucson by saying, they're a college town, blah blah blah. That's the only thing that they got, whatever. That's not a bad thing.
Yes.
I don't care.
Right.
Like, it's a phenomenal place to live. It's a phenomenal place to grow up and cheer on your team. So in a lot of these communities, in a lot of these cities that we're going to be going to in the Big 12 are going to be very close to Tucson, not close to Phoenix or ASU, because of the style that Tucson is. So this is definitely a good thing.
All right. Now, Joseph, we are live. I'm being asked. Mike, are you live? Give me a back the A if we're live. I keep telling you we are live. Back the A. Take that.
We also had a question about whether or not what was Big 12 Media Day compared to Pac-12 Media Day. Like, it was a good, bad, whatever. We'll give you the scouting report. Number one, the food is far worse at Big 12. And I apologize to all the Big 12 people that put this together, but no, it's not even close. Like,
was it the lunch a little better than the breakfast?
The lunch was much better than the breakfast. The breakfast was abhorrent. It was not good. It was probably the worst eggs I've ever had in my life.
They weren't good.
Not good. Pretty bad. Anyway, the everything, the structure and everything is solid. It's not bad. The one thing that the Pac-12 did do very well last year was they kind of marshaled everybody through the lines, so you got an opportunity to talk to every coach and every player. This year with this group, they haven't done that, so you're kind of at a free for all. So it's been a little bit, hit or miss on the players that you can get and talk to and learn about. So, but overall, nothing dramatically different or worse or better.
Right, for sure. Now, with there's going to be a lot of eyes on Arizona. We're going to get some players tomorrow and obviously talk about that. But, Arizona's viewed as one of 5 teams that can win the conference and has really reasonable odds. We were able to speak with Dennis Dodd a little.
You were able to.
Oh,
I was able to. Is what he should have said.
You were off doing GM things. I was off doing looking for interviews. But we talked with Dennis Dodd, senior editor of CBS Sports, who's been around for about 35,000 years doing college football. His words, not mine. And he gave a preview about how we got here and why he's really excited to speak with Brennan tomorrow. Fortunate enough to be joined by the great Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports. Dennis, I've been reading you for a long time. That is a compliment. That is not an age remark.
It can be interpreted either way, but anything above ground at this point is a plus.
That's the way we take it. Okay, now, Big 12 Media Day. Obviously, Arizona, the 4 corner schools are here. Let me ask you this. Just looking back, how did we get to this point where the Pac-12 is basically gone and the Big 12 was one of the big recipients of it?
Well, massive mismanagement. I don't have to tell anybody by the Pac-12 and its officers and its presidents. And I think everybody has to take a little ownership in it. that it came to be like this.
Right.
Brett Yormark was aggressive in getting the 4-4 corner schools. Realignment was unstoppable,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sad.
Right.
My first memories of college football was watching O.J. Simpson in 1968 run to the Rose Bowl
Right.
with USC. So, I said, boy, it's really warm there this time of year. And so
Right.
that's what hooked me. I missed the Pac-12.
Now you look at the Big 12. Now Brett Yormark came in, and a lot of times you get commissioners that say they're going to do a bunch of stuff, and then they don't really do it. Yormark came in and he said, not only are we're going to get a linear deal, we're going to get everybody a raise, and we're going to expand. Check, check, check. In this day and age, especially with Pac-12 schools where you are always hearing about what was going to happen, it's kind of refreshing to see a guy come in here that just says, all right, I'm going to do this, and he does it.
Yeah, he was a name. Look, when we were trying to find out who the finalists were, who the people were going to replace Bob Bowlesby, nobody knew who Brent Yormark
Right.
was. He was known in the industry,
Right.
very accomplished. But to the average sports fan, no. And he absolutely wowed the presidents and then I guess whatever the smaller search committee
Right.
when he presented his vision. And here we are today in Las Vegas,
Right.
The Big 12 in Las Vegas. I mean, my first Big 12 game was 1977, watching Iowa State and Missouri. To think this could be this today is incredible.
Is to be, thinking back to the maturation of the Big 8 and then into the
yes,
Big 12.
I go back to the Big 8.
Nebraska and Oklahoma and those kind of games. Yeah. Now, Utah is the preseason pick. That Utah has been the epitome of consistency and just being solid for as long as Kyle Whittingham has been there. What do you think about them as the preseason? And do you think that they should be the preseason number one?
Yeah, I think you got to pick them. I just talked to him at his availability just now. I said, there's something to be said for you personally going through 4 leagues, Kyle Whittingham, and really dictating terms instead of, we got to get used to this league.
Right.
No, people have to get used to Utah.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be some of that here. I'm not going to say they're going to dominate because I think it's going to be one of those leagues where a different team possibly wins every year. But what they have now today with Cam Rising, those 2 running backs, and always stout defense, maybe an All-American tight end, they're the team to beat.
Right.
But there are about 4 or 5 you can put in that same
I was
sentence.
going to say, I think there's about 5 when you got Kansas, Kansas State, Arizona, Utah, and then, heck, even Oklahoma State at this point as well. You
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a very competitive conference. Now, I think a lot of people look at it and they're like, well, the Big Ten and the SEC, they got the elite teams. Fair enough. But there's 5 legitimate preseason top 25 teams here. It's not like you're talking about kind of this also-ran conference.
Yeah, I had I do preseason top 25s in the offseason. I had 5 teams in there.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that. I think they'll be very competitive. The old Big 12 was somewhat of a wide open league, didn't play much defense. I think this one will.
Right.
I think college football's turning a corner where defenses will kind of gain back territory, if you will.
Right.
You saw that last year with Michigan. So I think there'll be a little bit of that. And that's why Utah fits right in. That's why Arizona, frankly, fits right in, which where they are right now. But if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. That's still the case.
Right. Let's talk Arizona. They do have a quarterback. You got Noah Fafita. You got Teteroa McMillan coming back. Arizona has not had a long history of being able to string together success. Brennan comes in, and, Dennis, in a weird way, a lot of times a coach has a honeymoon. But with this roster, a lot of people are expecting you to be able to win something now.
Yeah, no, I've heard. I don't know Brent Brennan. I'm going to meet him today or this week while they're here. I heard nothing but good news, good things about him from down in Arizona since he got there. He's a guy that obviously wanted to be there, has a connection to the school, goes back to Dick Tomey.
Right.
Everything you'd want in an Arizona coach. And, by the way, he can coach. When you're at San Jose State and you win the Mountain West, I don't care if it is the COVID year, you're doing something.
Yes.
So I think he'll fit right in. He gets it. He's a ball coach. And Arizona, again, will be – I think they're that team. It's a scramble for second place. If we think Utah is number one, Arizona could be right there.
Right. Now, let's talk Colorado. That's obviously, they get all the storylines, Deion, Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter. Vegas and the preseason media poll, not nearly as high as, I think some Colorado fans would be. What are you looking for from Colorado this year, and what do you think is going to be the outcome?
Well, there's a lot of questions at Colorado. Year 2 under Deion, they come in with a 6-game losing streak, 4-8 last year, and I think Deion's approach was exposed in that he did this wonderful turnaround that basically lasted September.
Yeah, right.
And it was great. It was one of the most weird, fun experiences of my career going through that and being there. But they still have to figure it out on both lines.
Right.
And he didn't recruit or didn't know to recruit well enough to stock the offensive and defensive lines. Now, the question is, has he? Because you can't go anywhere until you match up there, whatever league you're playing in. They may have the number one pick in the draft in Shedeur Sanders. He was sacked 56 times. I can't remember what the stat was, but that's the most for any team in FBS in 5 years, 10 years, something like that. So he was beat up. They lost their best rusher, Dylan Edwards, to Kansas State. So I think there's some challenges ahead.
Right.
It's not going to be easy.
When you look at the Big 12, it's kind of it's a quarter. There's a quarterback and a running back. There's a strength to it. I mean, you look at Shedeur Sanders, you look at Noah Fafita. I mean, Avery Johnson is kind of the ultimate wild card in all of this. You get back Cam Rising. You've got Rocco Beck. Again, it's a fairly talented league at some marquee positions, Dennis.
It is. I keep saying it's the island of misfit teams, and I mean that in a good way because it's now 16 teams that, frankly, nobody else wants.
Right.
And in this age of realignment, that's really, really good.
Right.
That's the reason why this private equity money is so attractive because in 8 years when the contract runs out, they might still be together and they might re-up together. You know, the money's pretty good. But you're talking about on the field. Yeah, I think that it's a league that come November 1st, everybody could have 2 losses. You could have a team running away with it. I mean, that was part of the death of the Pac-12, Mike, frankly, that everybody did have 2 losses by November, and they were out of the running.
Right.
Now, for the Big 12 and a lot of teams, the playoff meets them in the middle.
Right.
You know, and that the champion is virtually guaranteed a spot. So it's going to be really interesting November 1st and I just talked to Brett Yormark.
Right.
He said the month of November is going to be key for us.
Lastly, what's the future of college athletics? Where are we? And again, just put your time machine on right here going forward.
Oh.
Where are we in 5 to 10 years? Do we have it? Is it even possible to speculate?
No, it's not possible to speculate because we're living it right now.
Right.
They're going to be compensated as some sort of employee-employer relationship, collective bargaining, and I've seen it. And I'm already done with it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I tell people, we've already seen Shedeur Sanders drive his Bentley to work.
Yes.
I'm okay with it as long as he produces on Saturday.
For sure. Exactly.
You know, as long as Cam Rising, comes to the game and wins games for Utah, it's fine. The average fan doesn't care. The average fan wants to know, is my team going to beat the other team on Saturday? And what the NIL era, these 3 years have proven is the fan doesn't care.
Right.
In general. If the guy's making $1 million, $2 million, or nothing, they just want to.
He just wants to win.
Right.
He is the great Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports. Many more years of this, Dennis. We very much appreciate you as always, my friend.
You got it. Thanks so much, Mike.
Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports. All right, Dennis hit on a lot of points that I want to get in on here, especially, too, because he finds Arizona to be possibly the most intriguing team in the entire Big 12. We're going to get to that in a second, but something that is full of intrigue because of how good it is Four Peaks. Listen. Whenever I see that Four Peaks van go around Tucson, I get excited and I generally take a picture.
What the hell are you talking about? A Four Peaks van?
There's a Four Peaks van in Tucson.
What?
Oh, I've taken many pictures of it. I get very excited every time I see it. Yes.
Is this with like a guy that's selling like?
Yeah, well, I think it's like a distribution. Yeah, I know. It's a distribution. It's a distribution vehicle.
Oh, okay.
I see it everywhere. A Four Peaks vehicle though, and
I'm just making sure that you didn't actually run into some shady shit.
No. I had my Shady Rays on though.
Oh, okay, good for you.
Here's the deal, though. Visit the fourpeaks.com locator, and if you haven't already, you will thank me later on this one. To find all your favorite beers and events, check out Four Peaks Brewer, Four Peaks Pub.
Do you have a favorite beer?
I do have one. I'm very much a Kilt Lifter fan.
Okay.
Kilt Lifter,
you're a redhead, so it makes sense.
Kilt Lifter, very tasty. To keep up with the latest at Arizona's hometown brewery, must be 21 years or older to drink Four Peaks. Please drink responsibly. What is your favorite drink?
Oh, mine is definitely the peach ale.
Oh,
but,
the peach ale.
I got a peach behind me. So
I was going to say, it makes a lot of sense as well.
Eric's rolling his eyes.
I do not have anything sly to add to that, so sometimes they say discretion is the better form of valor.
Sometimes you got to box out with something.
Yep, exactly. Four Peaks, though, check it out. And when you think Saul Bookman, when you think Eric Ruby.
Game time.
You think cool.
Nope. I don't know about that.
No. You do. You also,
I don't think so, Mike.
No, and when you think Anthony Totri, you think cool as well.
Do we?
And here's why. Because you also think of Shady Rays. That is why you think of Shady Rays, because of the impact that Shady Rays has had in the community. I see people not wearing Shady Rays here, and I feel bad for them because Shady Rays is on a much different level. And here's the other thing, Saul. You can find Shady Rays at a much discounted deal many times.
Tell me how.
All right, well, I'm glad you asked, Saul Bookman, because there's all kinds of good stuff. But exclusively for our listeners, and I want to be very clear about this, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head over to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses, not polarizing, polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if the PHNX family was in that 300,000 people right there, because we like Shady Rays.
We love Shady Rays, and we are polarizing when we wear them.
Yes, we are. We are polarized, but they are very, very good. Check it out. Be like Eric Ruby. Get yourself a pair of Shady Rays, my friend. You will thank me later. And again, use code PHNX. PHNX. All right. Dennis Dodd said that he thinks that Arizona might be the most intriguing team in the Big 12. Now, disclaimer, he did not pick Arizona to win the Big 12. But he said, listen, he said they clearly have the talent to win the conference. And he said, Brennan, I'm intrigued to meet the guy because, you know, San Jose State, and without saying it, he said it, might be the most difficult place in the world to win college football games. You have next to no support financially. You know, any good kid from that area is not, let's be honest, they're not looking to go play at San Jose State if they've got other options. And he said, I don't care if it's a COVID year. If you have them in the championship game of the Mountain West, he said he did a good job. He said, I think he pretty much maxed out. He said, I'm excited to see what he can do with some talent.
I wholeheartly agree.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of a shame that we haven't heard more from Brennan nationally and even locally. It's you know, he's kind of he's been kind of not MIA, but, you know, he just is not as seen as Jed Fish was, I would say. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what the feedback is from everybody here when they hear him speak and they ask him questions and how he responds along with the players in his program. So excited about that. I actually had an opportunity to talk to Yogi Roth today about that very topic and about how, you know, Coach Brennan being at San Jose State and what that really meant and what that really means to the program. Obviously, you're familiar with the West Coast. You understand how difficult it is to build a top-level program at San Jose State. Can you elaborate just a little bit on the amount of growth that program had under Brent Brennan and him coming over here and how that's only a good thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you evaluate coaches at that level who are up for other jobs, you just immediately go to their record. And you're like, oh, 1 year they had a bunch of wins, 1 year they were down, maybe they're not the hot guy anymore. But if you double click on that, you recognize, or I used to go and visit Brent at San Jose State many times, and you go out to the practice field, you go to the facility, day one, year 1 to year 3 to year 5, and you just look at the dramatic growth. I mean, it is hard. And what was so beautiful about it, and I think this is the best illustration for him, 2 years ago, they had the two best defensive linemen in the Mountain West. And they had multiple six-figure offers to go leave. And they chose to stay. They stayed for him. They stayed for the culture that was built. They stayed for their teammates. They stayed for San Jose State football. Like, think about that sentence. As an edge rusher, like a premier player in the reality of today's college football, they chose to not bolt and stay there. And that just speaks to him. And you look at how players have transferred in when he was there and thrived, or came out of high school and thrived, or identified and developed and thrived. I mean, he's all about the players. And I think when you talk to anybody who's played for him there, talk to Brandon Cooks at Oregon State, who he coached as a wide receiver, or even over the last couple of months at Arizona when I talked to players there, they all say and echo the same thing, was that he throws down for us. And it's not just a player's coach, like there's a discipline around that, but it's one that is organized, has true purpose. Like, he really philosophically is grounded in a foundation that he's developed over the course of his career.
Boom, he hit the ball out of the park. Does that not also sound like the man that took over Arizona and got all these players to stay when they got to know him?
I don't think people understand the mountain that he had to climb in about 2 days to try and salvage that roster, and the tremendous job that he did to do so. And I know a lot of people are going to give credit to the players, deservedly so, because some of them rallied around the program as well, and they should definitely get some love. But there's a reason why players buy into Coach Brennan. And, you know, Brennan has gotten a lot of flack from some, I'm not going to call them casuals, but I would just say some U of A haters out there, both inside and outside the fan base, because they just don't understand why. He got this job and he doesn't have this big old glamorous name and blah, blah, blah. But like, he's the most qualified coach.
Yes.
And not only that, but again, he took San Jose State, which is a perennial bottom feeder, and he made them relevant in the Mountain West.
Right.
Like, that is not nothing.
All right, I'm going to give you another example of where I think they really bought into Brent Brennan. So, Les Fafita was mentioning one time, and Les Fafita, Noah Fafita's father, he said that, listen, my kid had some pretty nice offers to go. I mean, he could have, had some pretty nice offers to go places. But when he met with Brent Brennan, those fears were pretty much, or fears isn't the right word, but he didn't have any fears. But here's the best part about it. They didn't even have an offensive coordinator hired yet. He said, you know what? I trust the dude. Oh, well, more than I trust my phone. He says, I trust the dude. And they made this decision before even an offensive coordinator was hired. I'll be honest with you, Saul. I don't know that I'm even taking that leap of faith if I'm looking at it and saying, these are people that were clearly committed to what Brent Brennan was telling them.
I think the other thing, we have Yogi's, we'll have Yogi's full interview out there. But one of the things he also brought up was just the thought of legacy. And sure, you could jump, if you're T-Mac, right? You could jump from here to Alabama.
Yeah.
Cool. But after you graduate this year from Alabama, or you're done with your 1 year at Alabama, like, what's your legacy?
Yeah.
Will you go down as one of the greatest receivers in that program's history? What legacy have you set for yourself? If T-Mac and Noah ball out this year, ball out, they're already right there in the top, 10 of all time in U of A history, just because of the confidence that they've had in the program and really their dedication to the red and blue. They go to a whole nother stratosphere if they are able to win a Big 12 championship or get to the CFP or whatever.
Right.
So I think that's their legacy, is being two of the most iconic players to ever wear these colors. And you're not going to get that at Alabama. You're not going to get that at LSU because there's too many people that have a legacy there that you have to try and overcome.
I thought he made an interesting point. I don't know if it was you or if I was eavesdropping on somebody else that he made this point, but he was talking about Yogi Roth, that is. He was talking about Jordan Addison, and he says, he went from Pittsburgh to USC. Is he Pittsburgh? Is he USC? Does either fan base get super excited about him? He's in the NFL, but nobody's really going to say, man, that was our dude right there. There's a big part of that. Fafita, to me, is really fascinating as far as the legacy aspect goes because, keep in mind, he's a 5'8" quarterback, which you don't see a lot of 5'8" quarterbacks, and comes to the U of A, red shirts. Last year, Jaden DeLora did not play very well, and, Noah Fafita came in, and he was clearly a much different quarterback, and coach leaves. Noah Fafita's got a bunch of different options on if he wanted to leave or not, decides that I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to, turn away a bunch of money, and I'm going to stay loyal here. And I think now at this stage, you're looking at a player that could go down as one of, if not the most beloved players, just because of he's got the underdog mentality, he's got that underdog story to him, but he's also incredibly successful. And when he had a chance to bolt to bigger horizons, he did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're spot on with that.
Yeah. It just, it's a very interesting. It's just very interesting in this day and age where everybody takes the money. And I need to be very clear. I am the last person that gets on anybody for taking the money. If you're throwing $1.5 million at me as an 18 or a 19-year-old, I'm not telling anybody not to take that money. But, in this day and age, I think it just really kind of shows a new, maybe trajectory for Arizona. I wanted to get your take on, Dodd mentioned about Brent Brennan, though. And he said, in this conference, he said, in the Big 12, he said, one of the terms that I've been thinking about is it's a grinder conference. I thought that was a great way of putting it. You look at Mike Gundy. Dude's a grinder. You look at Lance Leopold. Dude is a grinder. Kyle Whittingham. Guy is a grinder.
Chris Kleiman.
Chris Kleiman, exactly.
Campbell,
exactly. Brennan feels like he fits kind of right into that mold.
He does. He does. I think, I think we have a conference. The only outliers to that grinder mentality in a different way, because I'm not going to say that any of the coaches are not grinders, because I think that's just an inherently tough job, right? But you have the perception of grinding, of being like just nose down, get your business done kind of deal. Like the Deion Sanderses of the world don't really fit that mold, right? They're a little bit more extravagant than that. And so I just love this thought that Coach Brennan is going to be able to come in here and he's going to fit the identity of the Big 12, and it'll be a seamless transition for the U of A into this conference. I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I think it's going to be one hell of a conference. I don't think the winner of this conference will win more than 10 games. I think 10-2 would be a phenomenal year for any of the teams that win the conference. I think 9-3 will probably get you in the bowl championship. But yeah, it's a good time to be in the Big 12. It is on the rise, and Brennan coming here right on the cusp of that is perfect time.
I think from a college football playoff perspective, I'm also interested to see what you want out of the Big 12. I think ideally you want to be able to listen. It's it's an expanded playoff now. I think you ideally want to be able to get 3 teams in. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I think when I look at it, if the 3 best teams in the Big 12 are all kind of in that 10-win realm, I don't also see why it's not the case. Now, granted, the SEC and the Big 12 or the Big 10, they're going to take up the lion's share. I get all of that, but I don't see why you couldn't get 3 teams possibly in for the Big 12 in that first year, and then about that point, it's game on. When you're in there, you just got to prove it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
This is here's a stat that blew me away. 5 teams in the Big 12 last year, because we talked a lot about, the Big 12 used to be a lot of air it out, right?
Yeah.
5 teams in the Big 12 last year were in the top 25 in rushing. This is a grounded and pounded out conference as well. You have variety of different styles in this conference, from the air attacks to the ground and pound. So I think, again, this is just it's such a unique time to be a part of this conference and see what these guys are going to try and build, the flexibility that they're going to have. Dilly kind of talked about it a little bit before too on the Sun Devils show about how no longer can you sit back and just you know that if this linebacker shifts over this 3 technique or this 3 gap or whatever, then will they what's coming, right? Because now coaches can place a lot of variety in different ways, and now that they got the tablets, which is another Yormark move to get Microsoft in the fold, to have tablets on the sideline so players can refer to plays before. Again, I just think the growth of this conference is fantastic.
Yeah, and you mentioned a great point about the running backs. I mean, you look at the running backs. I do believe this is the best running back conference in the country. You got Ollie Gordon, who I think you can make the case is the best running back in the country. And if he's not there, he's right there. Then you've got Neal at Kansas State, 1,200 yards. You've got Giddens at Kansas, you've over 1,200 yards. You've got Texas Tech guy, his name escapes my name, 1,500 yards. I mean, this is a league where you have a lot of good backs. And heck, I like Cam Scattaboo. I've been beat up for saying that I like Cam Scattaboo. The fact that Cam Scattaboo is not even thought of as one of the better running backs in the conference, when quite frankly, he's a very good running back, I think just shows you how good this conference is. I like the running back, Saul Bookman.
Listen, I have no bias towards ASU, as you know, because I love the U of A. Scattaboo, to me, is a top 2 running back in this league.
He's great.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've watched too many ASU games to not realize that the one player that they did have that they could count on 24/7 was Cam Scattaboo, breaking tackles, like just a massive human being, a bowling ball out there. So Taj Brooks is the running back that you were thinking about from Texas Tech. But yeah, again, I just, from top to bottom, I think this conference is very strong. They are deep, but is their ceiling as high as the premier teams in the country? Probably not, but you never know, especially now in today's world, man, when things change so much. The Ohio States of the world aren't going to be as dominant as they once were. Same thing, you're starting to see Alabama kind of tail off a little bit too. LSU's, so on and so forth. Like, there's going to be a lot of parity.
That's why I am excited about the college football playoffs, because here's what I didn't want to have happen, where you have 4 teams where 2 of them are from the Big Ten, 2 of them are from the SEC, and they're like, well, every single year this conference wins. Well, yeah, because those are the only ones you're putting in there. If the Big 12 gets 3 teams in, at that point it's on them to be able to produce.
If you inbreed the CFP, you're going to get the result that you want.
Of course,
or the result that we don't want.
Right, exactly. It's like the dad who tells everybody, my kid's the best pitcher and he's the only one that's allowed to pitch. Well, I mean, we don't really have a frame of reference after that. So tomorrow is going to be interesting. We're going to give a little bit of a tease, and we're going to end on a funny little video. But tomorrow, I'm excited. Obviously, Brent Brennan. You got Noah Fafita. You got T-Mac. And then on the other side, you got Jacob Manu. You got Gunnar Maldonado. I do plan on apologizing to Gunnar Maldonado in person. But, Saul, those are 4 big-time heavy hitters right there. What are you looking for?
Big-time heavy hitters. Hopefully we can get some of them on the show, if not all of them. It's going to be an exciting day. It's our first opportunity to be able to talk to these guys in the off season as we prepare for the Big 12 season. I know they're pumped up. They're excited. Everybody here, I will say this, you could feel that there was a little bit of a vibe of just, uncertainty, but it was optimism and, a lot of confidence. And though, Big 12 wise, could things have run a little bit smoother in terms of the media day? Of course they could. But, it's the first step in of many processes, and I'm sure they'll clean it up. One thing before you do get to what you were going to do is I did have a chance to talk to Sonny Dykes.
I do apologize.
And Sonny Dykes did, mention, I asked him about, U of A joining the conference and how he felt about that, and wanted to give everybody his thoughts.
It's a good football program, and I think, if we were going to add teams in the Big 12, you want to add good teams and competitive teams, and obviously Arizona was a really good football team last year, and has an opportunity to be a good program. They can recruit, they've got facilities, they've got fan support, they have all the things that successful football programs have, and so anytime you can add a quality opponent, that's a good thing. And then, as I said earlier, there's a little bit of a personal connection for me, just having been there for 3 years, and I really enjoyed my time there. But it's football, you know what I mean? You're gonna get ready to play and coach your best against whoever it is, no matter what fond feelings you have for him or not.
He was very fond of Tucson.
Yeah.
He did say that and caught him off, and I asked him, do you miss it? He was like, oh, yeah, it was one of my favorite places we've ever lived.
Yeah.
And, so, Sonny, he left a while back under the old regime, the old regime, but, still.
By the way,
tremendous success in college football.
Oh, he's fantastic. And by the way, what a coaching staff. When you got Mark Stoops as the defensive coordinator and you got Sonny Dykes as the offensive coordinator, maybe we should have just kept one of those guys. Sometimes just saying.
Maybe.
Just saying. Okay, so tomorrow, though, we're very hopeful we should be getting multiple players on. Hopefully Brent Brennan as well. Now, I know that U of A fans get annoyed at times about my friendship, my acquaintanceship with Kenny Dillingham. Well, it went down today. I brought him the Del Taco cheeseburger. He told me that he would eat it, and like a man, he did. We have this interaction right here.
I have not seen this yet.
There we go. This is big. All right. We've got the vaunted double Del Bacon Del Taco cheeseburger. This was promised, and it was delivered as promised to the great Kenny Dillingham. He said that he would eat it. This is what we're about. Now, be honest, though. Be honest. I
don't want to.
It's not filet mignon. I mean,
do you want me to be honest?
Yeah. No.
It's probably the best thing I've ever had.
This is what we're about here. This is where we bridge the divide from Tempe to Tucson.
Oh, I disagree.
Yes, exactly. Coach, very good work. We very much appreciate it.
Oh my God, Kenny is just. What fucking coach in the country would have ever done that?
That was fantastic. No, it was great. And he's like, you want me to be completely honest? Waiting for him to drop the hammer and say, get out of here. This thing sucks. And he says, it's probably the best thing I've ever had.
Oh, well, I think he was embellishing a little bit there.
A little bit, but either way.
But still, hey, it does smack.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
These guys had it yesterday. They liked it.
Exactly. You know what?
It got the job done.
It did, right? It did.
It was better than I expected. It was not incredible.
Well,
listen, if you go to McDonald's, you're not expecting a gourmet burger. Does it get the job done? When you go to Del Taco, it's kind of the same thing. does it get the job done?
We got to
And I
try
think
the
it does.
ramen next. They got ramen in there. We got to get some
I am in
burrito
on that.
ramen.
We got to get a partnership, Del Taco. Get your ass in the game.
We do. Come on, Del Taco. We see you admiring us from afar. But on that note, Saul Bookman, there is no better time to become a PHNX diehard. Literally no better time. We've got Big 12 Media Day, obviously. But guess what we also have right around the corners? Arizona Cardinals absolutely destroying it. Phoenix Suns, great offseason. Diamondbacks obviously had that killer run. And you got the Discord. You got all kinds of stuff.
We're dropping all types of behind-the-scenes stuff in the Discord today. Had a bunch of content, so you got to become a diehard to see it all. It's fantastic. They all got the first heads up on the Yormark interview and the Yogi interview that they've been able to look at. So please become a diehard. Join us. Join the squad. It's fantastic. It's a good time. You get hooked up on so many different things. You get a free T-shirt or a hat every single year. Listen, it pays for itself in tenfold. So come be a part of the diehards and rep that red and blue with us.
Absolutely. Now, what time do we plan on being on tomorrow, Eric Ruby? You're in charge of this.
We have no idea, Mike.
We are just going on the flow, man.
We are water right now, like Bruce Lee.
All right. You know what? Shane Diefenbach is telling me 2:30, but I will. He said around 2:30.
We'll see.
We will see. But either way, we will let you know as soon as I know, and as Saul Bookman knows. But Saul Bookman, the best free throw shooter in Arizona high school history. We very much appreciate you hopping on.
Mike Luke with the great recruiting today. Hey, Mike Luke, let me tell you, folks, he has been on Brett Yormark for 6 months. Ever since they announced they were coming to the Big 12, Mike Luke has been nonstop bombarding the Big 12 to try and get Brett Yormark on. Today, he walks up to Brett Yormark's number 2. I forgot his name.
Clark Williams.
Thank
you, Clark.
And as soon as Clark sees him, he says, "Let me guess, you're Mike Luke."
Yes.
And we're on our way over to the table. And so it was fantastic. I think, they really appreciate what you did to really promote the brand of the Big 12 Conference. And I know a lot of other people do. So kudos to you, bud.
Appreciate it, man. Persistence pays off. I always tell people that. You know what? Sometimes, and I will say, Saul, I was a nervous wreck because I'm like, oh, gosh, this is going to be terrible if something falls through or whatever. And I'm like, it didn't fall through. You know what? We took the gauntlet and we went from there. Eric Ruby.
Mike, you had like the perfect day.
I did. Oh,
you talked to Yormark. You got him the only media outlet to even get the guy, right? You gave Kenny his cheeseburger. You just hosted a fantastic show. You sat down with Dennis Dodd. What didn't you do today, Mike?
And I got to hang out with Saul Bookman.
Well, look at that. You just won everything.
Dude, yes. You know what? Sometimes there's nowhere to go but down from the situation you're on. And that's why we're going to sign off right now. But we will be back with you tomorrow, probably mid-afternoon. We got a whole bunch of different show clips we're going to be sending out. But check out PHNX_Wildcats at Iron Mike Luke, at Saul_Bookman, a.k.a. The Boss. But for everybody around here, very much appreciate all of you guys. For the boss, Saul Bookman, for the precocious Eric Ruby, I am merely Mike Luke. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.